This is Dropped on Soccer's morning show. Soccer Down here on the SDH network. I guess TMS, the morning show. John here, you there. Tuesday Thoughts today is kind of going to be like Wall Pass Wednesday, except a day early, because tomorrow, being as stacked as it is, it will have its own Wall Passian Wednesday elements. Morning, Alex. And since we have the possibility of Tyler Pilgrim, as always, at 9:15. Busiest man in the Northeast, Dylan Butler at 10 o'clock. And then Marion Crowder joining us at 10:30 to talk about what happened in USL Super League, since she was there at the first match for Peacock. And we're going to have Marion on to talk Super League, and discuss SEC soccer with her. Show's going to be kind of stacked. So what I'm kind of doing today is I'm making a daily allowance, and I'm widening the berth of Wall Pass Wednesday to include Tuesday Thoughts. There is a lot of stuff to get into. There's obviously opening kickoff, and there's a couple of things to get in there. One involves stupidity down here, and one involves something that I don't know how many of us could actually pull off, but a professional athlete can, and we saw it yesterday. There's some stuff going on with our friends at 777. There's all the transfers going on in Europe. There's all the transfer talk. There's a possibility that Loudoun United might be shifting their home location. Another city's kind of kicking the tires on the idea of picking Loudoun United up and moving them from Segra and moving them into town. We'll get into that. There's also some news from Atlanta United that will be the lead coming out of opening kickoff. And there's some stuff that I wanted to get into this morning involving MLS Next Pro. And one of the rules that is in MLS Next Pro that is also in Major League Soccer that has a flaw. And the flaw itself was exposed on the broadcast that we had on the network this past weekend involving Atlanta United 2 and Messi and Friends 2. And we'll get into that. And I will play the sequence and explain the flaw, and we'll see how you guys feel about the flaw. The rule itself obviously is fine, but there's a flaw or a loophole or whatever you want to call it. I guess we can call it a loophole considering we're in convention season this week. And just understand that there is an element of a rule that probably should be managed a little better, or just the idea should be managed a little better. Just be cognizant of this idea going forward when it comes to officials in Major League Soccer and in MLS Next Pro. And so there's all of that to get into this morning, and there's other stuff to get into. And it was interesting, Alex, because you've tuned in so early. There is a Luke Edwards column at the Telegraph. Title or byline: Popularity is fragile at Newcastle, and the pressure is on dancing Darren Eales to deliver. A lot of alliteration from anxious anchors placed in powerful posts. So we'll get into that. Like I said, there's a lot of transfer news overseas. There's still some stuff from yesterday in the Premier League, and there's a lot of news that's out there that we'll get into this morning. Plus anything else that's on your mind that we didn't get into yesterday that we can get into today. So Tuesday Thoughts are kind of Wall Pass Wednesday a day early. So that's what we're getting into this morning. That's the rundown. So Hutch is saying it's too nice to be inside, and we give Hutch full credit for this idea, as a matter of fact. Hutch is suggesting SDH al fresco. Nothing wrong with that. If you are outside and you're just kind of cruising, you're just chilling, you don't have anything to do, or you're on your way to whatever it is that you are in fact doing, and you are underneath the rather temperate star that is hundreds of millions miles away. So get into that. So there's nothing wrong with SDH al fresco, and if you can steal a morning like this one that's not massively thick here at SDH HQ in the Atlanta metropolitan area, where it's not already like 83 degrees, matching humidity, and it just feels like you need to pack another change of clothes since you're going to blow through that first round of clothing. That kind of a thing. Take advantage of a morning like this. Hutch is saying SDH al fresco and give your Wi-Fi signal the workout it craves. This feels like an advertising campaign. I will not turn it down. We will not turn said advertising campaign down. But yeah, check the width and breadth of your Wi-Fi signal out, and that's attached to your home abode, whatever the size of your home abode is, and whatever the range of your Wi-Fi is. Check the range of your Wi-Fi. So that is Hutch's PSA for the morning, and Alex is saying that the English are elite self-loathers. And so, like I said, you get into the headline like that, we'll see what's on Luke Edwards' mind coming up in just a little bit, and take you across the tour. There was a big trade in the NWSL yesterday too. We'll get into as well, and so there, like I said, there's a lot of news that's around that we have to catch up on. But first, as always, it's opening kickoff brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. There's your QR code as I completely and totally just crowd the screen. There we go. So that's your QR code for those of you who are watching on Twitch, on the 280 character app, and on our YouTube channel. What you do there is you hit that particular QR code, and that gets you into our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15. You get 15% off your purchase. They, in turn, take 10%, reinvest it in youth games, youth initiatives, stuff that they have earmarked as cool, as our friend Carlito would say. And you get to, once again, Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. And I'm trying to distract once again from making sure that the QR codes aren't doubling and that you don't click into our friends at Alliance Nurse Corps by mistake when you're looking for your morning kickoff and Kickoff Coffee right there. If you are looking for your next nursing job, or you're looking for your first nursing job, where do you go? You go to Alliance Nurse Corps, more than 30 years of experience in finding folks their gig in nursing. And that's why I hide the QR code for this one, because it's different than the one at Kickoff Coffee. And, I don't want you clicking for coffee and, chasing after a nursing gig if that's not what you're hunting for, and vice versa. So once again, there's your QR code for our friends at Alliance Nurse Corps. And then when they ask, how did you hear about us? You go SDH. So that's your QR code for our friends at Alliance Nurse Corps, great sponsors of everything here at SDH, and all of the different levels that we have when it comes to soccer. All right, so let me start with the funny one before we get into stupidity down here. Show of hands. How many of you, and good morning, Four Card, how many of you play rec soccer? How many of you still play the game that you grew up playing, but you are not, in the age group that you started in? You are not chasing after professional contracts. You are just being kind of leisurely about what you do. So, like I said, show of hands. Okay. So yesterday at the Premier League Monday Night Football match, it was Leicester and it was Spurs. And so coming out for the second 45 minutes, our buddy Jamie Vardy, who is 37 years old, is walking out to the pitch at King Power, and he's pounding a Red Bull. How many of us have done something like that, either leading into a match or just as kind of, topping off the tank as you're getting ready for the second half of, however length of time that you're doing? Have you ever, instead of like Gatorade or something like that, have you pounded a Red Bull heading into a match? Have you, gotten like a Jolt Cola or something and just sat there and it's like, I think I need a little extra. Literally, Jamie Vardy, and they had the shot of him in the tunnel. He was in the tunnel at King Power, and he's pounding a Red Bull as he's walking out for the second 45. Yeah, and I know, Four Card. How big was the Red Bull check to Vardy? I mean, you never know, but obviously you can kind of sit there and look at things. But and it looked like it was the straight, normal, average, everyday, the normal can of Red Bull, no flavor, no nothing. Jason could probably help him, in that regard if he was looking for something flavored. But Jamie Vardy, literally, as he's walking out for the second half, pounds a Red Bull. And at Four Card, yeah, if there wasn't a check, do not be surprised if there will be a check in short order. But I'm I'm the kind of guy at the age of 702 that if I'm doing any kind of athletic endeavor, I'm not going Red Bull. It's like I'm looking for sports beverage, or I'm drinking soda, but I'm not drinking Red Bull. I mean, there are times when I will be uh, having an athletic endeavor, and I certainly will be drinking. Look, I mean, I'm not going to hide it. I mean, shoot, I'll have a Mountain Dew with me in the golf cart, and I'll also have, like, the sports drink of choice, but I'm also going to have a soda. But I have never done anything like what Vardy did yesterday, and I did not know if there were any of you in the collective out there that kind of did the same thing, where it's like, I need to pick me up heading into the second half. I think I'll go Red Bull. Not like Jamie Vardy's heart rate wasn't, going to be elevated enough as it was. But Vardy pounds a Red Bull and goes out for the second half. And newly re-promoted Leicester draws Spurs. And as Vardy was checking out, you see the move that he made as he was leaving the pitch for the late sub, where he points to the lion, to the Spurs fans. He points to the Premier League lion and goes 1-0, basically to the Spurs fans. He reminds them that Leicester has one title in the Premier League and Spurs have none. I don't know if that was the Red Bull talking or not. I don't know if I would be investing in Jamie Vardy as he might be a cheap fantasy option this year, considering that Leicester is, newly re-promoted. But yeah, Vardy was feeling it yesterday. And I don't know, like I said, if that second half movement was Red Bull's negotiated or instigated. But yeah, Jamie Vardy pounding a Red Bull, going out for the second half. Haven't seen, I mean, literally, you go into the lower divisions, you might see, and maybe in the 1970s, you might see guys, taking a drag, sit there, and then throw it into the ground or whatever. But yeah, Jamie Vardy pounding a Red Bull yesterday. That was a unique experience, to say the very least. And then the swagger that Jamie Vardy had as he was pointing at the lion as he was getting subbed out, and he goes 1-0 to the Spurs fans. So it was a 1-1 draw. Good result for it was a good result for our friends at Leicester City yesterday, as they were back in the Premier League after an absence. But no, it was intriguing, to say the very least. And like I said, I was asking just on premise what the deal is involving something like that. So yeah, like I said, I didn't know if anybody was all wired up to do those kinds of things or not. So that's why I was asking. And so we go from that moment to a round of stupidity down here. And we're still in opening kickoff. So this is opening kickoff B, and this was something that stuck in my craw from the weekend that I didn't get to address yesterday because I forgot to write it down. We always look at football in other countries, and we always have concerns. And there was something that really rubbed me the wrong way. I'm sorry. After action that happened on the weekend, and this one was in women's football, and it was in Scotland. And I'll read you the copy from our friends at PA Media. Partick Thistle have given a positive update on the health of Courtney Stewart following her 3-hour wait for an ambulance after suffering a head injury in a game against Rangers. Stewart was hurt in a collision with Laura Rafferty of Rangers after 10 minutes of her side's 4-0 defeat in the Scottish Women's Premier League at Broadwood Stadium. An update from Partick read, quote, "After suffering a head injury 10 minutes into the game against Rangers, Courtney was taken by ambulance at just after 5 p.m. to the hospital. Courtney's still in hospital, but this is yesterday, but is awake, alert, talking, and CT scans and x-rays have been cleared." And there's a picture of her on social media with, she's in hospital, holding up her jersey. She has a smile on her face, etc. Thistle thanked their physio, Alana McPherson, Rangers medical team and St. John's First Aiders, for their excellent response and wished a speedy recovery to Rafferty, who also went off following the clash of heads. Midfielder Stewart added on social media that she was beyond grateful for all the messages of love and support while thanking the medical staff. She also wrote, like Mario Balotelli once said, "Why always me?" Partick head coach Brian Graham called for change, and this is what I was getting to. Following the lengthy wait for his player to get to hospital after the incident. Quote, "You fear the worst as soon as you see it happening, but you've got to give credit to our medical staff, the Rangers medical staff, and the first aider because they really looked after her." Graham, who is also the men's team captain, said in a club video, quote, "But she's still waiting on an ambulance as we speak right now, and I think something's got to change on that front." And literally, this is after the match he's saying this. "I just don't think we get that in the men's game. Obviously, it comes down to finance. Everybody's trying to keep her awake because she keeps trying to fall asleep from a medical point of view. We're just trying to keep her awake while we wait on an ambulance to get her to hospital and get her really checked over. We just hope she's okay." The ambulance service, the Scottish ambulance service, is sorry over the wait. They apologized for the delay and for any distress caused. Literally, that's what happened. They apologized for the delay and for any distress caused as Stewart waited 3 hours for an ambulance following the head injury she sustained against Rangers. She was taken just after 5 o'clock local time, 3 hours after the initial injury. Scottish Ambulance Service said in a statement, "Unfortunately, at the time of the call, we were experiencing pressure on our services due to high demand and protracted turnaround times at hospitals. A clinical advisor kept in regular contact with the patient, and we hope she's recovering well." Shortly after 10 o'clock p.m. local time, they posted the messages on social media. Player returned home and wrote on social, "Beyond grateful for all the messages of love and support," while thanking medical staff. After the match, once again, coach went on BBC Scotland, said, "I just don't think we get that weight in the men's game. League rules do not compel," this is from the BBC, "league rules do not compel clubs to have an ambulance at games in Scotland. Instead, the home club must make sure there is a qualified medical practitioner available. The hosts also have to provide a minimum of 2 stretchers and 4 trained stretcher bearers." There's a CONCACAF joke in there somewhere, but I'll hold back on it till the end. Last season, former Spartans manager Debbie McCulloch called for a review of the medical provision at SWPL games after Becky Galbraith received on-pitch treatment for 27 minutes before being taken to hospital with a neck injury. Graham added, "I don't know what we can change. Obviously, it comes down to finance." And back in November of 23, the incident that we're talking about, once again, if we're going to do things right, this was the quote at the time from McCullough, "We need to ultimately make sure everyone is safe or as safe as we can potentially make it. We are asking for an urgent review of medical procedures at SWPL games. It's a bit hit or miss right now." And then the SWPL, once again, back in 2023, back in November of that year with that incident, said it's the responsibility of each club to ensure a qualified medical practitioner and a chartered physiotherapist or equivalent is present. And that's the way things are right now in that particular league. But when you see things like that, the ambulance service is sorry for the wait. Player waits 3 hours to leave a stadium after a head injury and a head injury diagnosis. Those kinds of things. As much as we have gone forward, we still have a long way to go. And I'm talking in the worldly sense. So, in as much positive as we still have a lot to work on. And when a league says that ambulances are not mandatory, but you've got to have medical practitioners available, plus authorized stretcher bearers and those kinds of things, it's disappointing to have that kind of stuff come out publicly instead of, okay, we're going to treat players as best we can. So it's disappointing, and that's the word that I'll use, that we still have to fight battles like this, especially attached in this particular case to a head injury, that a player is just looked at for 3 hours on site, not taken to a hospital, waiting for an ambulance. Thankfully, the player seems to be okay. And thankfully for Partick Thistle and everyone attached to the program, that the player seems to be okay. But having to wait 3 hours after a head injury happens in a match, you got to work on stuff. And so after what happened in November of 2023, when you look for a review, and as I look at the calendar on my desktop that says 8/20/24, and there was no notification or mention or anything of the end of a review in the SWPL, and you have a moment like what happened on the weekend, it seems like, this is the push in the back. Hey, you're supposed to do your review. We said no word on any kind of a review back from November 2023. But you get a push in the back in August of 2024, and hopefully we'll see what the review says. We'll see if it's completed, and we'll see what adjustments are made. But it's disappointing that we still have to talk about in a professional league that you don't have an ambulance ready, and that you have to wait 3 hours, and you got to be in the queue for local ambulance services for a player at a sporting event who suffers a head injury. So, yeah, like I said, as far as we've come, we still got a long way to go. But I just wanted to point that out as kind of, your come on man moment from the weekend. And so that's what it was. That's opening kickoff parts 1 and 2. Brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. That's your QR code. Brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee. You click on that. You go into Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. When you check out, don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15. You get 15% off your purchase. They, in turn, take 10% reinvested into cool things, youth programs, youth initiatives that they have earmarked as cool. Our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. As I sit here and continue to wave to make sure that you're not confusing that one with the Alliance Nurse Corps QR code. Unless, of course, you want to, invest in a career in nursing with our friends at Alliance Nurse Corps. Okay, so that's opening kickoff. And I know it was long, but it was a couple of things that were holdovers from the weekend that I did not quite get the chance to discuss. So, all right, we're bottom of the first half hour.
So what do you guys want to talk about?
Literally, it's on the board this morning. I know that this topic we have to address because of it being an Atlanta United player. This was released yesterday on Dax McCarty's 280-character app account. And it's a pretty damn big announcement. So this is what happened yesterday on Dax's account, if you missed it and have not had the chance to see what was produced.
It's funny, my wife asked me the other day if I was getting love handles.
Love handles?
Yeah. No. And that's when I figured, all right, it's probably time. Hey everyone, after lots of thought and reflection, it is with an immense amount of pride and gratitude that I'm announcing my retirement at the end of the 2024 season. Carrying around a decision like this for the last couple of weeks when I knew in my heart what I wanted to do, it was difficult. So I felt like the best thing to do was come out and let everybody know what was going on. The competitor in me thinks that I can play forever, but the realist in me knows that now is the right time to walk away. I have so many thoughts and memories and things that come to mind when I think about and reflect on my career. But the most important one is how grateful I am to everyone who's been there with me along the way. There's too many people to thank. I'll save that for after the season. But just know that every single person that I've crossed paths with in my career, it's meant a lot to me. I know that we still have plenty to play for this season at Atlanta United. We have 9 games left, and hopefully more. I still have a burning desire to be successful this season, and I know our entire team does as well. I'm going to put everything I have into making sure that we can be successful at the end of the year. It's been an amazing journey, and it's not over quite yet, but I want to enjoy every last training session and every last game that I have left to be able to play this game. So, 19 years. Couldn't quite make it to 20. That's what keeps popping into my head. These last 19 years have been a dream. Thank you so much to everyone who's been involved. Let's end the season in the right way. Thanks again, everyone.
Michael Dax McCarty, born April 30, 1987. Winter Park, Florida, Winter Park High School. Played college soccer at North Carolina. 45 matches, 4 goals, 11 assists. All ACC first team in 2005. Left after his sophomore year at North Carolina. Drafted first in the first round, 6th overall to Dallas. 93 appearances for FC Dallas, 5 goals. 2006 to 2010. Cup of coffee in D.C. at D.C. United. McCarty was selected by Portland as their first pick in the 2010 expansion draft. Flipped with AM to D.C. United for Rodney Wallace and a number 4th round pick in the 2011 Super Draft. Ben Olsen, then the interim coach, made McCarty a priority signing due to the similarities between Dax and his own style of play. Didn't perform up to Olsen's expectations as a converted attacking midfielder, traded after 13 matches to Red Bulls middle of the year. Traded for Dwayne De Rosario, nicknamed the Ginger Ninja. Breakout season in 2012. 169 appearances for Red Bulls, 14 goals along the way through 2016. Regarded as the most underrated player in the league in 2012 because there were dudes named Thierry Henry and Tim Cahill that were there. Named captain in 2015 by Jesse Marsh. 2016 preseason, signed a new multi-year deal. Named alongside Driver, a.k.a. Darlington Nagbe, as ESPN's most underrated player, even after he got All-Star recognition. Forced out of play for a month after fracturing a tibia, July 31st. Returned to the field September 3rd after being eliminated from the playoffs. 198 matches for the club's all-time appearance leader. Traded to the Chicago Fire in January 2017 in exchange for $400,000 of AM. Move being announced just days after he was married and attending his first U.S. national team camp in years. Gee, thanks, Red Bulls. Joined the Fire in 2017, most successful season in years. Unsung hero of the club when he passed 250 starts in Major League Soccer. Traded to Nashville in November 2019 for $50,000 in 2020 AM, $50,000 more in GAM. Get this, $50,000 in 2020 GAM, $50,000 in 2020 TAM, and a second-round pick in the 21 Super Draft. So then Dax plays 105 matches, plays 86 matches with Chicago with 1 goal. 105 matches for Nashville with 2 goals. And then we talked about the contract negotiation, which really didn't apparently seem to be one, with Dax in Nashville. Signed with Atlanta United January 9th of 2024 as a free agent. And so he has been here this year. He's been that veteran presence that I know that Atlanta United fans have been looking for in various ways. The guy that comes off the bench, gives you a cup of coffee, couple of starts here and there, comes in as a closer, gives you 20 or 30 minutes, and you end up with someone who is 37 years old. 19 seasons, 37 years old. And this season, you look at you look at the match log that we have with Dax McCarty this year. First couple of matches, didn't play in the regular season. Then he gets a start against Toronto. Then in the regular season, once again, string of matches where he only plays and comes in off the bench. And then Open Cup in May is when business picked up. Open Cup starts, comes in, plays 45 4 days later. Third match in a week, played 74 in the 1-0 loss to Cincinnati. Then came in as a sub, then played the full 120 minutes against Charleston Battery in the win there in Open Cup. Then mercifully got a day off in the 1-0 loss to LAFC 4 days later. Started 4 matches in a row. Then got to be a substitute for a couple. Came in and started again. Another couple of subs, started again. And then his last 3, the Leagues Cup matches, comes in as a sub. And that's where we are with Dax McCarty in the 2024 season. 15 matches, 8 starts, 729 minutes. Passing efficiency at 86.5%. Fouls suffered 9-8. Once again, 8 shots so far this season. Total scoring attempts, 8 total scoring attempts this season. He's been that veteran presence. I will say this as a member of the media that has covered Dax this season. His candor is a welcome change than from what you get with most athletes these days, and I'm talking all sports, where instead of getting the canned soundbite, Dax tells you what he thinks. And it's been refreshing to have that kind of honesty when it comes to post-match sound, and to have that kind of an individual who is a team captain and has the team captain aura about him, that he demands the most from those around him. And he will tell you what he thinks about what's going on around him. It has been obviously a disappointment on multiple fronts with what Dax McCarty came to Atlanta to hopefully experience. But he, recognizes there's 9 games left, as he said in the announcement. Hopefully more. 19 seasons in Major League Soccer. That is an amazing number in any league. And with what he has accomplished in Major League Soccer, I think it's safe to say that when there's consideration for all of those postseason halls of fame, or whatever you want to call it, it'll be there. When he crossed 400 MLS starts, it was admitted back in April of last year. So a year and a half ago, when he crossed 400, that retirement had crossed his mind. Joins Kyle Beckerman and Chad Marshall at the time, 9 days before his 36th birthday. There's a lot of pride in the fact that I've been able to do it as long as I have. The thing that always sticks out to me is I always wanted to try and earn the trust and respect of my teammates and coaches before all else. That was the thing that meant more to me than anything. Won the Supporters Shield with Red Bulls in 2013. And was captain for the first 3 seasons in Nashville. At the time, when Walker Zimmerman took the armband in Nashville, he said, I've never needed the captain's armband to try to just be myself and try to be a good teammate, try to be a good leader. Where I'm at in my career, once again, this was last season with Nashville, I'm not playing 90 minutes every single game, even though I stupidly think I can still. But that's the aside. That's the athlete in all of us, that we think that we can do things longer on the clock than the body will let us. Dak says, we all know that's not the case. I think Walker's the perfect guy to take it away from me. Admitted he's considered retirement recent seasons, wasn't ready to call it quits like last April. He says, it's crossed my mind. Over 35,000 regular season minutes. Thought about a lot of different options. I love the game. I want to stay involved in the game no matter what I do. If I keep playing for another year or 2 years, or if I retire at the end of last season, I still want to be involved in this game. It's crossed my mind for sure. Desperately wanted to win a title in Nashville. Wanted to do it for Nashville, the city, before he hung up his boots. Still a big motivator for him. And that was a Ben Wright article from a year and a half ago. So that's what Atlanta has with Dax McCarty, as he is he's going to wind it up at the end of this season. But because of the podcast that he has, because of his candor and honesty in sound bites with media, do not be surprised. Do not be surprised if there is a talking head analyst future for Dax McCarty in some manner, way, shape, or form after this season. And I think that in the vein of what we've seen with the athletes that are on TV today, I think Dax would slide right into that kind of a role. I think that you put Dax in a studio, you put him in a studio setting, and you let him wind it up and talk about what's going on. Then I think that the candor and the honesty, I think, will once again be a place where it can shine. But Dax has 9 matches left, regular season with Atlanta United, announcing yesterday that he's going to hang up his boots after this season with Atlanta United. But yeah, that was the news from yesterday. And you know that Dax McCarty is going to give you 100% in his 19th season at the age of 37. But yeah, the love handles comment kind of got to me right off the top. And when your wife says, you get love handles? That really yeah. And okay. Story time with John. I am kind of fighting those same battles right now. Went to the doctor for my checkup a handful of months ago. And the doctor, and this is the other thing that gets to me. When you go to the doctor's office, this is almost turning into an opening kickoff part 3. When you go to the doctor's office and they weigh you with your clothes on, I go to the doctor's office, and that's the first thing. They weigh you with your clothes on. So it's a flawed premise to begin with. You go into the doctor's office. They weigh you with your clothes on, except for your shoes. I go into the doctor's office, and he said, you weigh 222 pounds. That's 6'1". And I looked at him, and I was like, the hell I do. I was a little more colorful than that in my thought, but I said, I have never in my life weighed over 220 pounds. But he's like, yeah, you're 222 pounds. You got to watch. You got to really get to watching your weight. And from that moment, basically, as an I'll show you to the doctor, it was one of those where, yeah, I'll show you. And you point your finger at the doctor. And I think the short version is, if you don't buy stupid stuff, you don't eat stupid stuff. So I'm down pounds. But yeah, it's like the body tells you things that you think that you can surpass what the body is telling you it can do. And sitting in a chair for hours in a day, my body reminds me what it can and can't do. But yeah, as we get longer in the driver's license numbers, It's like, yeah, you're kind of told things, and it's like glove handles. Yeah, you look at yourself, and you're like, oh, no, I think I'm okay. But then you find out that you're not. You got some work to do. So, yeah, suffice to say, after getting that moment, kind of like what Dax jokingly got from the boss in the McCarty household, I kind of got that last time, but it was not joking. It was serious from the doctor. And so I've had to work on that too. But yeah, the bottom line is you don't buy stupid stuff. You don't eat stupid stuff. That's the short version anyway. But yeah, so story time with John. Story time with John is that I understand the love handle comment from the boss in the McCarty household. No question about it. But yeah, so Dax McCarty is going to hang him up, Morning Harry, at the end of this season. So now it's up to what we see with Atlanta United as we get closer and closer to the matchup against LAG this weekend, and it's going to be a difficult one. Let me get into the juice boxes just so you have an early thought on what it's looking like for Atlanta United on the road. And it with the Killer Peas, as Keith Costigan has referred to them, Paintsel, Peck, and Pooge, it is going to be a tall order first match back for Atlanta United. We talked about it with Abe Gordon yesterday. You know, this one's going to be a tall order out west. You got to make hay at home, and you got to steal some points on the road, like the Charlotte matchup that follows. Okay, it's not too bad. Galaxy are a minus 139 right now. Atlanta United pushing plus 300 to win outright. Your draw is a plus 333. But I would have initially thought that Galaxy number would have been a little bigger. It's not. So 139 right now for LAG for one of the late games on Saturday night. But yeah, we'll get into juice boxes and things like that on Friday to get you ready for the weekend and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, right now only a 139 underdog on the road for that matchup with Atlanta United and LA Galaxy on the road. All right, so let's see who's here this morning. And I will hi everybody. Alex, good morning. Hutch is the one who wanted to make sure that everybody gave their Wi-Fi signal a workout and doing SDH al fresco, and we appreciate that. Morning Forecard. Morning Alex. I don't let Michael says that Atlanta United broke Dax McCarty. I think his body broke him more than anything else. As he said, it's like, when you're 37 and it's like, yeah, I can do that. And the body's like, hold on there, partner. And so you had one of those. I think it's been one of those kind of seasons for Dax where the body's a little slower to turn over the engine and things like that. But at 37, man, hell of a run. Yeah. So Will was forcing me to make sure that I got my Cody Rhodes drop in this morning. Morning, Will. Morning, Wiley. Morning, Forecard. Will says, I cringe that players are mostly younger than me now. I remember when athletes were my parents' age. Now very few goos are older than me. And I mean, Brad Gazan, Brad's what? I mean, Brad is 38, 39. As I sit here and look in the Wikipedias quickly and find out just how old Brad is. But born September 9, 1984. So in September, Bradley Edwin Gazan is going to turn the big 4-0. And I mean, he's had a bit of a resurgence after the Achilles and the knee. But 40, 6 feet 4 inches tall, Bradley Edwin Gazan on September the 9th is going to turn 40. That's crazy when you think about it. And Michael says most coaches are younger than he is. And good morning, Harry. So yeah, that was probably the biggest piece of news yesterday involving Atlanta United and involving Major League Soccer, as folks are kind of dancing back and trying to get everybody back into the frame of mind of getting into the regular season and the regular season sprint now that Leagues Cup is working its way to a conclusion. And speaking of Leagues Cup, obviously, since you're down to the Final Four, you've got the matchups this weekend, right, this week. And then you end up with the matchups on the weekend, which has already caused the postponement of Vancouver and LAFC this weekend. So that one's going to get pushed down the road. And it's going to be tomorrow night, your doubleheader, Columbus and Philly, which will be an interesting contrast. No Jose Martinez for Philadelphia, as he has already headed to Corinthians to get to the next stage of his career. And then LAFC and Colorado. And we talked about Colorado yesterday and the faith that has been given to Chris Armas. Hadn't really been given a budget, but he's been given faith and a little bit of money. And right now you've got Colorado at LAFC is your late game. Philadelphia at Columbus is the early game. And that's what it's going to look like. In Philadelphia, according to Rich yesterday, would host either match, either the final or the third place game. So Chester will be very, very busy on the weekend. Finals and the third place match, both are going to be on the 25th. So that's what you're staring at Leagues Cup. Leagues Cup coming to its conclusion. And the ratings for, I mean, we know about the attendance figures and the ratings themselves for what have been divulged for the tournament. FS1, the ratings there, not good. Last summer, Messi's debut against Cruz Azul had 1.75 million viewers on Univision. 1.45 who watched him win the Leagues Cup final on TUDN. This year, Leagues Cup games are averaging 30,000, and, once again, it's somewhat apples and oranges. But Leagues Cup matches averaging 30,000 viewers on FS1. Big Fox is on 71 million American homes. FS1's in 71 million American homes. Leagues Cup matches averaging 30,000 viewers. But once again, that doesn't include viewership from Season Pass or Univision. Apple keeps those metrics, in a skiff someplace, probably in New York City. And you've got to have a passcode to get in and maybe a thumbprint and an ID card. But MLS employees have to sign NDAs, and Apple does not release their numbers when it comes to what we've seen from Leagues Cup. But FS1 averaging 30,000 viewers. To give you an example, the most on FS1 was Philadelphia and Cruz Azul, 72,000 viewers. Then Pumas and Austin, 39. Leon and Portland, and this is thousands of viewers. Pumas and Austin, 39. Leon and Portland, 36. New England, Nashville, 35. LAFC, Austin, 31. Toluca, Chicago Fire, 29. Club America, Atlas, 28. Monterrey, Austin, 25. Seattle, Necaxa, 25. NYCFC, Querétaro, 24. Chivas, San Jose, 23. Tigres, Pachuca, 19. San Jose and Necaxa, 14,000. Last season, you had 6 matches on FS1 in the summer of 2023 that had 6 figures. 173,000, Club America and all caps. 148 for Puebla, Chicago Fire. 142 for Monterrey, Seattle. 121 for Monterrey and Portland. 119 for Chicago and Club America. 101 for New England, Querétaro. Last season, Leagues Cup on FS1 averaged just below 150,000 viewers. I know a lot of folks are looking at the injury of Lionel Messi. I think he's now 12 straight without an appearance because of his injury. That as a reason not to watch Leagues Cup. But not every Inter-Miami match, I don't think, in 2023. It's like that was not the exclusive match that was shown, as evidenced by the numbers we were just talking about. There was a variety of teams that were on FS1 last year. And strangely enough, those 6 matches that we just talked about, the ones that were over 6 figures, none of them included Inter-Miami as a top 6 viewing on FS1. But a lot of folks are pointing at Lionel Messi's injury and other things. Is there an overdose of soccer with the Copa America and the Euro and all of these things? Has Leagues Cup gone just, down the wayside because of all the other stuff that people are watching? So you're looking at You really don't have any rivals unless it's Liga MX versus Liga MX, and then maybe you're watching a rivalry match that comes through with Major League Soccer. And then you have the timing of the matches themselves that is being looked at. The Copa America, Euros, all these kinds of things. Folks are sitting there and trying to figure out why Leagues Cup is not being watched. But the numbers on FS1 way down in average. Looks like they're down about 2/3 this season on FS1 compared to the way things were last year. So once again, you got to keep an eye on that as we continue to go forward. A lot of other things to talk about this morning, like I said, now that we're kind of at the halfway point. Stuff going on in Virginia/Maryland about Loudon possibly moving. We got a 777 update. I'll take the European stuff and the transfer stuff and I'll push it to the side because there's still one thing that I wanted to talk about when it comes to domestic. Michael says with the schedule chaos Leagues Cup causes ultra low attendance, no TV viewers, someone please pull the plug on the patient. It is a television series. Kind of like if you think about it, like what Apple TV does and like I said, Apple TV, once again, they don't disclose numbers. It's probably more subscriber based and trying to draw in subscribers, that kind of a thing. FS1 has to put the numbers out there. And they're not good this season. So to Apple TV, it is a television series. Yeah. And that's it, Michael. It's a TV series. It is a TV series, but once again, we don't know how many folks are watching. We don't know what the metrics are. We don't know what Apple's desire is as the addition of this television series to their overall sports inventory. What it does is it gives them reps when it comes to television production, and it allows them to either experiment or reinforce what their television production habits are when it comes to Major League Soccer and the things that they broadcast. So if they want to experiment with something, if they want less cameras, more cameras, if they want to work on angles, if they want to do all these kinds of production elements, it gives them another opportunity to get more reps for their crews. And it makes them sharper. Just think of it kind of like an athlete. Right now, once again, we don't know what Apple's numbers are where it comes to Leagues Cup. And they're not going to tell us. Short of the Catherine Zeta-Jones scene in the movie where she's trying to steal the diamond, and she comes in through all the infrared and she comes in and parachutes in, and she's got the guy wires attached to her and everything, and she goes right to just above the floor before she wants to try and steal whatever it is she's trying to steal. Short of having someone like that go into a room and find out where this television agreement is involving Apple TV and Major League Soccer, and having Catherine Zeta-Jones parachute in, try and find it and look at it and take pictures and get out, or Tom Cruise and being Ethan Hunt in Mission Impossible. We don't. It's almost like the ACC. Maybe the ACC deed of gift and the Apple TV document, they hang out in the same place. That would be my bet. Is that the ACC deed of gift and MLS's contract with Apple TV, they probably hang out in the same place to make sure that they don't make sure that neither is lonely. They hang out with each other. If Apple, and we'd heard in the past about, possible exits if metrics aren't met and this kind of a thing. Right now, Apple is kicking the tires on television series. Michael says, I hope Apple viewership is the same and that you don't get a season 3. Turns into like Apple TV's version of Sports Night. You get 2 great seasons, or you get 2 seasons and you're looking for a third and it doesn't happen. I think you get this at the very least, through the World Cup season in 26. But right now, short of not knowing anything about what's going on, they're going to hang on. They're going to hang on to this television series. It can serve other purposes for Apple TV. In addition to, giving your crews more reps and more ideas about how to do things in a production sense. It also gives you inventory. People want to watch old games, they can watch old games. People want to watch other stuff, they can watch other stuff. But what it does for Apple TV is it gives them a portfolio to go to the EFL, UEFA. Hey, we want to do the Euros. We want to broadcast the Premier League. We want to, broadcast whatever. And they can go to these leagues overseas, or they can go to the Copa America or whomever, and they can sit there and say, look, we have invested. You see the quality of our product. We'd like to be considered a serious bidder in your next contract negotiations. So I've always thought to a certain degree that Major League Soccer is a litmus test for Apple itself when it comes to trying to go after other properties. There was talk that Apple might go after the Premier League the last time that the deal was up. But what I think this is it continues to be a litmus test and continues to be that petri dish for them to work on their craft. So when the big money contracts are up with other tournaments and things, that's why I think that it's another reason that they're doing this, in addition to having the content and the inventory that's tied to the world's greats. It's for them so they can have conversations with the world players and go, hey, look, we're serious about it, and here's how we're serious about it. We've invested in things like Leagues Cup and Major League Soccer and all that. So I think that it is something that they add to their portfolio, much like shrinking and Ted Lasso and what have you, as a way to attract themselves to be considered seriously when it comes to other tournaments and other things like that. So I think that this is it's another series that they can attach to it. David, I watch way too much soccer, but with my club out, I care nothing about Leagues Cup. I watch random MLS matches all the time, but with my team out or on a break, I don't even check the schedule for Leagues Cup. And this is another element in that where David says, I don't even check the schedule for Leagues Cup. We've got to go fishing for it. I think that one of the other things that you've got to look for in this is that without us looking for that information, how much promotion is there? How much promotion actually is there for Leagues Cup? I haven't seen a whole lot of outside, traditional over-the-air television stuff. I haven't seen a whole lot of it. And I think that isn't helping tell the story either. I haven't, I literally have not seen, I haven't seen a whole lot of outside promotion. Yes, it's on social media, and I know you're trying to attract younger viewers and such. But I haven't seen a whole lot of over-the-air promotion about Leagues Cup. And if I were Major League Soccer and or Leagues Cup, the major domos of Leagues Cup and Liga MX, I would be somewhat, I'd be like raising my hand in class and going, where's the promotion? And I think that outside of social media, like I said, outside of social media, I'm not seeing a whole lot of it. Haven't seen a whole lot of it this tournament. Maybe it's because I'm not watching Big FOX or FS1 enough. But I just haven't seen a whole lot of outside promotion about it. Yeah, I mean, I look on my 280 character app timeline, and it just is, it's there in various pieces, but it's not out there in the public purview. It's not. They're not bombarding us with the idea, hey, we're in the Leagues Cup semifinals. Leagues Cup semifinals are tomorrow. You might see that on the 280 character app, but you're not seeing it. You're not seeing any kind of independent advertising on over-the-air television, and I think that doesn't help you. So if you're trying to build your product, it's not. It's build your product other than social media. You might have to spend a little more money in the over-the-air aspect of it to help that along. But yeah, I mean, short of us looking for it, you really got to look for it. Michael, for this season ticket holder, not giving the club or league any additional money for Leagues Cup based on the second game this year. Most other season ticket holders have already made the same choice. And Michael says Lasso and Shrinking are so much better series. Absolutely true. And for Alex, the format is the problem where Leagues Cup is concerned. The break for teams that don't progress is terrible. It totally kills season's momentum. Yeah, I mean, the rest of us are, if you do not have a team, if you have a team that exited in the group stage, let's go back and see who exited in the group stage. Fortunately, for us, there's plenty to talk about, and we talk about it every morning. So, all right, so let's see. Standings. Where's my standings? About club's cause. No. Schedule. I need to go back to the absolute beginning here. And the group standings. So of course they eliminate the group standings from the website, or they make it difficult to look for. Okay. Standings. Okay, so let's go here. It's outside Leagues Cup. All right, so Querétaro, Atlético San Luis, Puebla, Charlotte, Nashville, Red Bulls, Atlanta United, Monterrey, who fired their coach, Chivas, FC Dallas, Chicago, León, Minnesota, Tijuana, and RSL. All right, so those markets did not make it out of group stage. So you have, all right, so I'm going to have to count with both hands here. 1-1, 2-1, 2-2, 3-2, 4-2, 4-4, 5-4, 6-4, 7-4, 8-4, 8-5, 8-6, 8-7. So you had 7 Liga MX sides, so 35% of their inventory not looking. And then in the 8 markets in the United States, Charlotte, Nashville, Red Bulls, Atlanta, Dallas, Chicago, Minnesota, and RSL. So you honestly, I mean, if you look at it, you had a big chunk of the southeastern United States not in the knockout stage of the tournament. That doesn't, I mean, obviously that doesn't help you, period. But I mean, you look at it geographically. I'll include Dallas because of the SEC. Dallas, Atlanta, Charlotte, Nashville. 4 teams in your southeastern footprint that are out. Then you have Chicago who's out, RSL who's out, and Red Bulls who are out. So that's your 7 of your 8. And I can't remember the 8th one off the top of my head. But when half of the teams that are out of Leagues Cup happen to be in your southeast footprint, your growing footprint for the sport in the United States, regardless of what division we're talking about, when half of the teams that exit in the group stage happen to be in the southeast footprint, that's a big chunk of an audience that's just not going to be interested in one geographic location. One chunk of the country is checked out. And it's the one that's growing the fastest, I would say, here in the United States when it comes to watching soccer, having clubs show up, and all that. So that break in the southeastern United States, you might have to try a little harder to try to bring folks back in under the umbrella. Hey, come and watch, come and watch the group stage. But in that break, what do you do to try and draw folks back in? Didn't see a whole lot of that. Multiple midweek games into the schedule. Knicks, oh, hi, Knicks. Into your break is a killer, and all the Liga MX teams, they're gone too. Yeah, there's no Liga MX side, but they can focus. They can all go back and focus and get back to getting healthy for the Apertura. So no Liga MX side, so that means that, yes, Major League Soccer teams will be getting all of the bids to the CCC, the CONCACAF Hemispheric Extravaganza. Good for Major League Soccer in the end, but the drawing card that Apple TV was trying to get with the Liga MX sides helping the race to the finish, that's not going to be there. All of those clubs got bumped out. 7 didn't make it out of group stage, and then you had a lot of the big guns. Tigres getting bumped out by Mazatlan, which you did not anticipate. And like I said, Monterrey, one of the Grandes, not making it out of group stage, fired their manager. That's what it means to them. But they aren't around here in the Final Four. It's all Major League Soccer clubs. So I still think that the league and Leagues Cup as an entity, you hope that they are learning these lessons going forward. I still think that the television series known as Leagues Cup, will be around through the 26 World Cup, and then we'll see what happens 27 and beyond. But I think it's with us for another couple of seasons at the very least. Okay. That was the Leagues Cup analysis / diatribe this morning. The other thing that I wanted to get into involving rules, and it's something that applies to both Major League Soccer and to MLS Next Pro. And it was a situation that happened in Next Pro this past weekend with Atlanta United and with Messi and friends. And there are 2 pieces of the match that I want to play for you. And it happens in and around the 27th minute, where Eric Centeno is just flat out taken out. I want to say I think it's Lawson Sunderland. And the current injury implementation is what we're staring at here. And the concern that should be had over this rule going forward. So it was something that came up that you kind of have to sit there and you've got to bookmark it and go, okay, you got to keep an eye on this and make sure that you have officials that can navigate these instances properly. So here are the 2 pieces, and it's the 2 segments that I'm going to play from the match from this past weekend. And it's in the same area, but it's how the situation evolved when Eric Centeno goes down for an injury on the road at Inter Miami down at Chase Stadium. So here's the first piece of the injury and how Jason described it and how it was being implemented by Deshaun Brock and the ref crew down in Fort Lauderdale. Here's piece number 1 from the SDH Network.
Aiden Torres is going to drop back to right back and cover that position for now. Hibbert will pick up the drop ball and walk around as long as the referee will allow him to waste time, because it appears that Eric Centeno is going to have to wait to come back in according to the rules that are in place in MLS Next Pro and in MLS. And I like the rule, by the way. Hibbert punts it low through the middle. That was an interesting ball. Carlton finds it over to the right to Gallardo. It's a worm burner from Hibbert. Carlton spins to the left, gets it back from Gallardo, dribbles forward, tries to lay it off for Tamimi, did not connect. Miami will try to break up the right side. He and Frey. Yeah, no Centeno. Up the right side now. Here comes Miami. Squared into the middle to Morales. Morales tries to cut back around Armas. Armas wins the tackle, comes flying through, wins another tackle with Sunderland, and Miami is offside. The flag went up, and it will be a free kick for Atlanta. No, it won't. They're just going to continue playing.
All right, so that's section number 1. Then, in and around that same time period, this is the extension of that play of the play in the first half, as Atlanta United 2 is still trying to figure out, do they need to sub? Can they? How do they? Those kinds of things. And we'll go over the rule once again when the second piece of tape is done, and kind of look at the flaw, or at least the concern that should be attached to this rule. Here's the second piece of tape, a little further in the game action, as Atlanta United 2 is still trying to rectify the situation of being a man down because of an injury that was sustained from a tackle by a rival player, for lack of a better word. But it wasn't a visiting team, but it was a home player going up against Eric Centeno. Here's the second piece of tape from the weekend.
Foul counts up to, it's got to be 7 or 8 now on Miami. Here comes Atlanta, Caden Moore. Dominic Chonqui at midfield. Slips a pass through. That's a good ball. Noble Okello makes the run into space. He'll hit the brakes. Atlanta still playing shorthanded after Eric Centeno was tripped up with no attempt to play the ball by Ryan Carmichael and injured, and then has to sit out for the period of time according to the MLS Next Pro rules. Gotta love it, right? Caden Moore with a nutmeg after a ball forward by Kawasmi. Good grief, this game is insane. Actually, Centeno is sitting down, which is not good. So he might not be able to come back depending on whatever rules. Maybe the rules are being enforced properly. Ethan Dudley going to check in for Atlanta. Eric Centeno knocked out of the game on a play that did not result in a foul or a yellow card. Atlanta turns it over in the attacking half. This short bench for Atlanta United 2 is even shorter now as they have to go to the bench in the first half. Unbelievable. Miami now in the middle third, Sunderland. Here comes Miami over to the left now. Ferreira passes through. Morales fouled by Armas. Free kick Miami. And here comes Ethan Dudley. Atlanta back to 11 now. We'll see how they reshape as Dudley will go into the middle of the back line. Looks like Kawasmi will go to right back as Torres will step forward.
Okay, so that was how it all came to pass, involving a tackle that did not result in either a foul or a card. And frankly, it should have been both. Then you end up with an injury out of that. And instead of it being an injury and trying to quickly substitute in, it seems to have been monitored as an injury. Well, a player down longer than the 15 seconds. We'll go over the rule in a second. Then, when it's obvious that Eric Centeno is sitting down, then substitutions coming in. Play was not stopped to allow for a substitution, and so Atlanta United 2 was down a man for quite some time because of a foul and an injury sustained from the foul, and not from just going down because you twisted an ankle or caused some of your own, you caused your own injury or something like that. So here's the rule as it was instituted by Major League Soccer at the time in MLS Next Pro. Off-field treatment rule will allow for play to resume quickly while providing medical professionals time to assess and treat players off the field of play. If a player is suspected to have an injury and is on the ground for longer than 15 seconds, a medical crew will come onto the field to evaluate the player and assist him off the field. Once the player is off the field, the player will be treated by the medical staff and be required to remain off the field for 3 minutes. There are specific exceptions to the 3-minute requirement, including potential head injury, cardiac issue, or other serious medical events. The new rule will also increase effective match time by reducing the likelihood of players embellishing injuries and the gamesmanship that leads to delays in matches. Ali Curtis at the time. Looking forward to a quote. We are looking forward to implementing the off-field treatment rule as we believe it will positively impact our game in multiple ways. Not only will it allow our medical professionals to treat our athletes in a less pressurized, more controlled environment, but it will also address players or teams deliberately delaying the game in order to gain a competitive advantage. With less disruptions in play, fans watching will be able to enjoy more soccer and less stoppages, end quote. So that is what they were looking for, meaning MLS Next Pro and then subsequently Major League Soccer, when they implemented the off-field treatment rule. In this case, where Ryan Carmichael fouls Eric Centeno, and Centeno, inside the 3 minutes, it is evident that he cannot continue. Atlanta United still had to play a man down, and were having to defend and reshape when it was clearly evident that it was not an embellishment and that it was a situation where Atlanta United 2 needed to substitute and apparently was not allowed to until the 3 minutes were up, as looking at the clock by the center referee. So my question is this, and it was a question that Jason brought up on the broadcast. What is to stop a team from just purposely fouling to create a man advantage? If you can determine where the center ref's gauge is when it comes to calling fouls, giving cards, etc. Let's say you're a physical team. And we all have physical teams in our minds that we go up against when you're talking about Atlanta United. So from that prism, through that prism, let's look at this for a second. Let's say that Brooks Lennon is fouled, or Pedro Amador is fouled, or whomever. I was thinking Centeno because he was at right back, and that's why the right back example came up. So what is to stop a team from purposely fouling, knowing that you're not going to get a card? Oh, and Nix, thank you, by the way. What is to stop a team from fouling if you know that if that player stays down long enough, stays down past the 15 seconds, they have to be gone for 3 minutes? What is to stop a team from purposely fouling to create a man advantage and to have it be something that they continue to do and do and do under the guideposts of the off-field replacement rule for Major League Soccer? Like I said, I brought that tape in this morning because of what happened to Atlanta United 2. Centeno had to be replaced. It was within the 3 minutes that it was obvious that Centeno had to be replaced because of injury, not because of embellishment or, longer than 15 seconds, of staying down for longer than 15 seconds. But what is to stop a team in Major League Soccer that happens to be physical, that knows where the line of the referee is, to continue to create man advantage, and create man advantage by doing hard fouls? Because if you're down longer than 15, you're out for 3. You've got to stay out, So, like I said, it's just something to put under your hat. Literally, it is something to put under your hat. The implementation of any kind of the off-field treatment rule. Keep an eye on it. Like I said, I posted this situation just so everybody can be made aware of it. So you can sit there and keep an eye on it and go, oh, okay. But morning, David. David says that Jose Ramirez is, he left the league, not as much of a problem as before. David says, if there's no card, it's a solid plan. The card stops the rule, it stops the rule, David thinks. But if you have a If you have a club that is physical in nature and is more than happy to sit there and body check and slide tackle and create injuries and issues, I think the larger element to me in this is, while yes, the card is a part of it, I think that if you have center refs that can navigate the game and understand what's going on and have crews that can do the same. In the Centeno case, he was not going to continue. It was well within that 3 minutes where you sit there and you can look over and go, okay, he's not getting up. He's sitting down on the sidelines. Within the 3 minutes, then you should allow for at the next opportunity. And Atlanta United had to wait. And I think it was close to the end of the 3-minute window when they allowed Ethan Dudley in. So like I said, just something to keep an eye on. When you're looking at new rules that are supposed to accomplish certain things. But keep an eye out on the physical teams, especially as we get later in the year, perhaps as we get into the playoffs, for key moments where if they can understand, it's like, okay, maybe we can take the guy out and have him go down for longer than 15 seconds to create a man advantage. I would put it upon the crews as well to sit there and go, okay, this happened. He's injured. We'll wipe the 3 minutes out and go ahead and sub in. So I think that you've got to keep an eye on teams with physical players who find out where the line is with that center ref and the crew that they're navigating the match with. And then the crews themselves have to be cognizant of, they got to read the room. I think that pro has to be in a situation where they've got to read the room. And what was it that Dr. Joe said about the rules of soccer? What he would do is he would go to he'd give speeches and he would come with the rules of the game, and it would be this big book, a lot bigger than what I have for those watching on live. But he would have the rules of soccer, and it would be a book, and he would say, okay, do you see this book? You know, what is it doing? This book it wasn't a hardbound copy of the rules of soccer, but his point was that, as he would wave the book in the air, he's like, what's with this book? It's flexible. It's a flexible copy of the rules of soccer. So I think that it behooves it makes sure it should reinforce to pro to read the room in these situations, and keep an eye out for those physical teams. Keep an eye out for those folks that want to try and assert a man advantage in this kind of an environment. So, like I said, that was an FYI this morning for Tuesday Thoughts. Just keep an eye out on physical teams, keep an eye out on crews, and see how many crews presented with these situations can read the room well enough to make sure that the flexibility of the rules of the game stay flexible and they're not completely and totally rigid. So, yeah, that's your PSA for the morning, I guess. Knicks. I think the teams will learn to keep the guy on the field until they get that sub up so they can sub him at the same time. And that is very well true, Knicks, but in this case with Centeno, you didn't know if he could continue. He was down. It was a hard foul by Carmichael. Should have been a card because it wasn't anywhere navigating possession of the ball right at the edge of the Atlanta United 18. Carmichael looked like he was taking out Centeno. He wasn't going for the ball. And it should have been at the very least a foul and a card. I would have said sure. But you didn't know at the time how seriously injured Eric Centeno was. Then physio comes, helps him up, helps him off. It's past the 15 seconds at that point. And then the rule itself was administered properly. down longer than 15, out for 3. You're on that clock. But once again, I would ask that pro in these situations understand that we're under the 3 minutes and Eric Centeno is sitting down and he's in no position to continue. So player injury, then you should be able to sub, but Atlanta United too wasn't able to sub toward the end until the 3 minutes. I'll go back and listen to the actual tape and get a timestamp as to how long it was, but I don't think they were allowed to sub until that 3 minutes were up. I would like to think that referees could read the room and say, okay, Dudley's ready to go. He's off the bench, bang, get him in. So just if you're pro, read the room and just make sure that rule book is flexible. It's not a rigid piece of literature. It's a flexible piece of literature. And Nick says, yeah, there are some flaws. David, it's like puck over the glass in hockey. You create a rule which no longer allows assessment of intent. It's the consequence. Yeah, because right now, puck goes over the glass. Doesn't matter if you're doing it intentionally or if you're trying to kill a power play and you're trying to do whatever. If it goes up over the glass as a part of your motion and you're trying to clear it out, consequence, unintended or otherwise, is a power play. So you've got to be aware of what you're doing and where you are with the puck, and can you bang it off the high glass, or do you just send it down? Because if you try to do something in the in-betweens and you get the angle wrong, it's a power play situation. So yeah, you create a rule. In David's mind, create a rule no longer allows assessment of intent. Basically, it's cause and effect. Cause, puck exits the field of play. Doesn't matter what you're doing. Effect, power play. So that's where we are. Okay. All right. So that was, like I said, that was the PSA for the morning, just to kind of keep an eye out on that. Like I said, whatever's on your mind this morning, we got transactions, we got stuff overseas, we got transfers that we're trying to keep an eye on. We've got all the gossip, rumor, and innuendo, what to watch today, where to watch it, all that kind of stuff here in the final half hour. But what I wanted to do also, as a part of our coverage of everything overseas, is update you on our friends from 777. And it ain't a good update. Let me see if I can. Here we go. Paul Brown, our buddy Paul Brown at who's in a bunch of different places, but he spends some time at Yosemite football. And like I said, if you like true investigative journalism, then I would go to Yosemite football and I would read, I would read what they have going on. And they have a new article up this morning about Burkina Faso. And I know that you're sitting there going, wow, what's that? I mean, they did a story about the African Federation. And you have the title of the article by Romain Molina, Arrests, Disappearances, and Militarization. Military junta President Ibrahim Traore, who took power after a coup 2 years ago, has managed to make his candidate, Major Colonel Umaru Sawadogo, the only candidate 2 weeks before the presidential election at the Burkinabe Football Federation. Many people involved in the sport no longer dare to express themselves, at least not publicly. The government has taken over our sport. That's all. What can we do? It is what it is. So Burkina Faso, as a burgeoning African nation that is doing well in African tournaments, apparently now the junta president in Burkina Faso is making a major colonel the only candidate available to run for the head of the football federation. So anyway, that's the new article up at Yosemite Football. Like I said, if you're up for really cool investigative stuff, go there, support them. That's a free plug. But Paul Brown, who spends some time with our friends at Yosemite Football, yesterday came up and let us know about this. Several sources are telling Paul that 777 have been evicted from their Miami HQ. Landlord Brickell Holdings took legal action last month over unpaid rent of $144,000. And the 40-story office skyscraper is no longer listed on the company's website. Their Miami headquarters. And according to South Florida Business Journal, a process server physically notified 777 of the eviction lawsuit on August 12th after a June 26th default notice accelerated the entire $6.8 million rent payment due for the remainder of the lease ending in 2028. So that's what you're looking at from Ayman al-Shahawi and Biz Journal. So 777 looks like they have been evicted from a very prestigious 40-story skyscraper in Miami. And Paul was the one who had the article when 777 was trying to initially get into Everton and purchase Everton as a part of their multi-club football model. They didn't really exist until September of 21 when they acquired basically all the shares of Genoa for an estimated 150 million euro. Been a bit of a footnote in their activities. Group founded in 2015 by Joshua Wander and Stephen Pascoe, bought a small stake in Sevilla in 2018, purchased more shares 2 years later, upping their stake in the club to 7.5%. And then that was that as far as their initial football investments happened. But then 777, which, by the way, is a private company that Yosemar says, which insists does not invest other people's money, but only the wealth of its owners. They became a multi-club owner, only surpassed by City Football Group, Sevilla, Genoa, Vasco da Gama, Standard Liège, Red Star. Supposedly, we're trying to be the first ever foreign majority shareholder in Hertha BSC. And then Melbourne Victory. We should ask Bam about Melbourne Victory. Paid $6.1 million to acquire 20% of the Australian club shares, pledging to invest another 20 by 2028. But Clear Lake, Bowley Clear Lake, remember that? Which has a 60% stake in Chelsea, just bought 100% of Strasbourg, has $72 billion in assets. Elliott is of similar size. 777 claims to control $6 billion in investments, but Yosemar couldn't figure out how to corroborate it. Company's accounts aren't made public. Corporate structure was released. They've taken on a lot of liabilities, committed to spending tens, hundreds of millions in player acquisitions. And now to the point where after all of the chasing, all the investing, all of the lawsuits, that they've been kicked out of their building in Miami. So they are no longer apparently a part of their $40 million building that they're in because they couldn't make a $6.8 million rent payment. So they got booted. So that's the latest with 777 when it comes to who is where and who's doing what. And 777 is still trying to chase after folks and chase after all kinds of investments and investment opportunities. But hopefully folks are looking at 777 and steering away. Gossip, rumor, and innuendo. Who's going what? Who's going where? Who's doing what? I mentioned to Alex about popularity fragile at Newcastle. They're saying that it is a big moment for the club's CEO, Darren Eales, who must sign players to improve the first team in the last 2 weeks of the window. So you got Luke Edwards basically calling out Darren Eales in the Telegraph. Edwards says the 52-year-old has regularly made himself available for fan events, as has Chief Commercial Officer Peter Silverstone, who was at a True Faith Podcast live event last Friday. Eales did something similar on the club's preseason tour of Japan, leading an anti-Sunderland chant, much to the delight of the Newcastle fans present. Edwards admits he is not your usual character for a CEO. Made himself available for interviews with the written and broadcast media too, once in January, again in the summer. It's to be applauded when so many others in his position in English football choose to hide away from public scrutiny, although some in the fan base have criticized his failure to turn up at fan forum meetings. However, the point is this, according to Edwards. It's all well and good in doing this sort of thing when things are going well, but this has been a difficult testing summer for Newcastle. And with 2 weeks left to go in the transfer window, the pressure is on. It's a big moment for Eales and the club's new sporting director, Paul Mitchell. If managers have to win games to be considered a success, they have to sign players to improve the first team and give that manager the best chance of progress on the pitch. Insiders have been impressed with Mitchell in his first few weeks of the job. The next 2 weeks will determine how his first transfer window is perceived. The same, even if his remit is wider, is true of Eales, and the fans are getting twitchy the longer things go on without a major signing to raise the quality of Eddie Howe's first choice 11. Alex, I ask you, as our resident Newcastle fan, how would you gauge the first choice 11 right now? What needs to be fixed? What needs to be worked on with Newcastle? Luke Edwards maintains that that Newcastle have not dramatically improved the squad as things stand. They've signed a replacement for Paul Dummett in the form of free transfer arrival Lloyd Kelly, a third-choice project striker in William Osula from Sheffield United, and 2 backup keepers who will not, in an ideal world, play for the first team this season. Spent last 2 weeks negotiations with Crystal Palace for Mark Gahey, but have not made a breakthrough. Publicly challenged to increase their offer by Steve Parrish. First-choice target, Gahey. $65 million offer remains on the table, getting close to decision time. Newcastle will give up on Gahey if Palace does not agree to sell before the weekend. If they cannot complete a deal for their first-choice target after such a public pursuit, it makes things hard. It'll be seen as a defeat. Joe Gomez is on the list. It was discussed and briefly part of a swap that would have seen Anthony Gordon go. Liverpool's interest in Gordon has not gone away, although Newcastle, having solved their PSR concerns in June, are adamant he's not for sale in the window. Edwards posits they could sign even 2 players for less money, which would mean they could also address the weakness on the right side of the attack rather than just the center of the defense. Too soon to judge whether the window's been a success or not. Edwards' words. But, of course, Edwards sits there and is saying that this is a key time, the next 2 weeks. Going to be a lot of late transfer activity this summer. But failed to improve the squad, and Eales would be advised not to appear on any stages to lead a sing-song anytime soon. Popularity is a fragile thing when it comes to Newcastle United, and supporters value results on the pitch more than any sort of well-meaning fan engagement. What can be brushed off as some harmless fun now can easily turn into something less pleasant if supporters feel they've been let down by men in suits with microphones in their hands. So Luke Edwards decided that he just wanted to do a big old harumph of a column with 2 weeks left in the transfer window to sit there and say, well, Newcastle hasn't done anything yet, do something. Stomping his feet and gnashing his teeth and wringing his hands together because Newcastle hasn't done anything yet. Luke Edwards decided to launch that salvo in a personal column. Alex says the first 11 is good enough for top 4 if everyone stays healthy. Big problem's depth. Better right wing would help, but it's manageable for now. David, in discussing 777. Second in number of clubs owned or titles won. Sounds like their volume play not resulting in profits or championships. That is true. All of the pieces that 777 invested in. Hey, we've got a multi-club model. Hey, look at us. You invested a lot of other people's money, and you've gone into serious lawsuits and such. Look, when the state of Utah and Bermuda are talking to each other about 777 holdings and subsidiaries, that's a problem. And that was a while ago. But yeah, 777 now getting kicked out of their building because they didn't pay $6.8 million in rent, which was due between now and 2028. Alex says that's the thing about the self-loathing earlier, is if pressing the flesh is actively detracting from getting other work done, it's a silly take. Yeah, it is. But Luke Edwards felt compelled in the Telegraph to sit there and gnash his teeth and wring his hands and sit there and go harumph, 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 wanting to conflate the idea of the personality of your CEO and how it affects the negotiations of life on the field with 2 weeks left in the window. So, yeah, I didn't get a harumph out of you. So you got a harumph out of Luke Edwards in the Telegraph this morning if you're a Newcastle fan. Other stuff, excuse me. Looks like Ilkay Gundogan is tired of Barcelona. And he was not in the squad for their trip to Valencia. Looks like Manchester City is back to being interested. Hey, you want to come back? Come on back. Left on a free last year. 5 goals and 9 in 36 appearances during the 23-24 campaign. Barca beaten to the title by Madrid. Barca signed Dani Olmo for more than $50 million. But Dani Olmo has not been registered with La Liga. Missed the club season opener against Valencia. So that's a problem. You sign him, but he hasn't been registered. This seems to be a recurring issue with Barcelona. Looking at options in terms of who to sell or release from their contracts in order to free up space on the wage bill for Olmo. Barcelona continues to have this issue. The club are in excess of their annual spending cap and need to raise money in order to register the Spain international with the league. Hansi Flick said we cannot change anything about that. No excuses, no complaining. It's just about the now. I made many experiences in my past, and I arrived here with this situation. I accept what I cannot change, and this is it. City may look at Gundogan. Bayern Munich have considered a deal for him. Saudi Arabian clubs are on red alert as well. Guardiola insisted last week City would look at the deals in the final days. So could Ilkay Gundogan be making his return to Manchester City? You know, they'd love to have him. Joao Felix set to sign a 6-year deal. Looks like Raheem Sterling is on the outs. So Joao Felix to Atletico Madrid. Conor Gallagher on his way in from Chelsea. Raheem Sterling continues to work his way down the pecking order. Gallagher set to complete his £34 million move to Atletico in the coming days. England midfielder had last week returned to London after the deal stalled. So Joao Felix looks like he is in. Gallagher's move is finally apparently happening on the transfer to Atleti. Chelsea signs Felix, supposedly on a 6-year deal. Raheem Sterling is looking for a place to hide and another place to go. So it's not looking good for Raheem Sterling at Chelsea. Pellistri looks like he's out at Manchester United. Once again, I think that we'll get the start of the 3Ds this week with our buddy Drew Dickinson. And Drew will let you know what's going on with his beloved United. But it looks like Pellistri is out the door. £5 million deal looking for a regular football location. It's like, dude, I need regular reps. So Palistri looks like he might be joining Panathinaikos for $5 million. Bought 4 years ago from Peñarol. Loaned it to Alaves and Granada. Not in the squad in the season opener against Fulham. Scott McTominay has interest from Napoli and was subject to a bid from Fulham after they couldn't reach an agreement after they switched attention to Sander Berge, close to landing him from Burnley. Berge was on the short list of midfielders if they wanted to strengthen that area. Burnley is now looking at $20 million plus $5 if you want him. Fulham also among the clubs keeping an eye on Joe Gomez. So you have that. We mentioned teams spending money, not spending money, what have you. Apparently, according to John Percy, Gary O'Neill wants 2 players after Max Kilman and Pedro Neto are gone. But Wolves has brought in £94 million in their deals. Gary O'Neill has been told he can only spend 20. You like apples? If you're Gary O'Neill, do you like apples? You bring in £94 million at Wolves, selling folks like Kilman and Neto. Hey, Gary, here's 20. Here's $20 million to play with. That sounds worse than Bournemouth. Prioritizing a new center back before the transfer deadline. Chasing after Dara O'Shea at Burnley. Wants to recruit a new winger. And that's going to depend on the sales of folks like Daniel Podence, Gonzalo Cuedes, and Fabio Silva. There is interest in Podence. Any funds generated from departures will be added to the transfer budget after a spend of $40 million already this summer on Larson, Gomez, Doyle, and Lima. Larson completes a move for $23 million as a part of the deal agreed with Celta Vigo. Club ownership, Fosun aiming to invest just over a fifth of that $94 million received from Neto and Kilman. Neto agreed to a £54 million move to Chelsea. Kilman to West Ham for $40. Burnley's O'Shea, high on their list. Ahmed Hadzic at Sheffield United, which might fit their budget, would be another one, but that's been dismissed. Wolves have been determined to comply with PSR and raised over $140 million in sales. In March, they recorded a loss of $67 million for the financial year of May 2023, expected to avoid breaching regulations. Remember, and we went through this with Newcastle and others, you're only allowed, through profit and sustainability rules in the Premier League, you're only allowed to lose $105 million over a 3-year period. In March, it was reported that Wolves lost 2/3 of that in 1 year. Newcastle was the same way, but Newcastle has recovered, and they're within PSR regulations. So Wolves is trying to keep an eye on things now. So they're not in violation of PSR. But Gary O'Neill, you've been given $20 million of 94 that was brought in by 2 transfers. Eddie Nketiah falling down the pecking order at the Emirates for Arsenal. Forest is really interested in that, in bringing in Nketiah. So is Crystal Palace. Bournemouth showed interest earlier in the window before bringing in Evan Ilson in the club record deal. Talks broke down with Marseille with Nketiah. And the Telegraph understands Forest are assessing their options. Santiago Jimenez, $30 million, another player of interest. Jimenez is really of interest from a lot of other folks. So Eddie Nketiah, keep an eye on that. Alex says, meanwhile, about Newcastle, zero transparency, visibility, or accessibility under the prior ownership. And guess what? People complained about that. You can't win. No, you can't. Hey, why aren't you talking? Because people didn't want to see Mike Ashley out in public, I guess, to yell at him. So all he did was discuss things through rants in the papers. You don't get to see anybody from the Ashley administration. You come in now with the PIF. You have Darren, who's out in front. And either way, you're going to get folks complaining. You're not out talking to fans enough. You complain. You're talking too much. Focus on your work. So yes, you're getting both. You're getting both right now with Newcastle, from one to the other. So you're looking at all that. Fox Deportes and BN have added Serie A and Ligue 2 and new deals. Once again, remember, we're going to be keeping an eye on Caleb. We're going to be keeping an eye on Caleb Wiley. And we will kind of give you updates every day, every match day, following every match day. So it would be like on Mondays. We'll keep an eye on Caleb and let you know how things are going for him at Strasbourg. And we literally, I am watching Ligue 1 on BNs through Fanatis. Subtle plug, fntz.co/soccer down here. And that's how I'm keeping up with Caleb, in addition to SofaScore and getting it ratings. But yeah, I was watching Strasbourg and Montpellier this past weekend. And you can do that too at Fanatis and get you another streaming service. You get all the BN, CDO, Nuestra Tele, For the Fans, Teisei, Gold TV, where you can see our buddy Nino Torres calling games either in South America or in Portugal on every single, a lot of the channels that are there. They had a lot of Argentine football up last night, Copa Libertadores, Sudamericana. That'll be up as well. And you can take an eye out. You can take a good piece of your wallet out and sit there and look at Fanatis and add that to your subscription services. Jason got me hooked. I blame him once again. fntz.co/soccer down here helps out us at the network and helps out Fanatis with subscribers. And it really gets you into leagues that you never thought you'd ever watch. Liga 1 Max. I'm watching Ecuadorian football. I think they have the Ecuadorian second division that's been added recently as well. So there's plenty going on to keep an eye on when it comes to all the activity in and around the sickos divisions and countries and things, and you can get a good chunk of that at Fanatis at fntz.co/soccer down here. Ivan Toney obviously still being looked at by teams in Saudi Arabia. ATLUTD, I think, was the last one that was interested, and they were looking at, say, $35 million. Brentford is valuing Ivan Toney at 50. So I don't know if that margin is going to get closed, but we'll see. Like I said, we got 2 weeks left in the window, so we'll see what's going on. Once again, we mentioned Raheem Sterling. Apparently, Juve is kicking the tires, but that's the 4-letter paper. Take the information there at your own peril. We mentioned yesterday about Kyle Walker and Joao Cancelo. Al Hilal interested in those two. We mentioned Ilkay Gundogan. Real Sociedad refusing to lower their valuation for Spain midfielder and Arsenal target Mikel Merino. We mentioned Al-Akhli and Toney. But Chelsea, according to the 3-letter paper, could be making a last-ditch move because Chelsea wants all the toys, and they really don't care what anybody else thinks. It's like, ooh, Ivan Toney, shiny object. So literally, that's literally what you're staring at when it comes to Chelsea. Apparently, they've invested $1.12 billion in player transfers. So there's all of that. So, yes, the agreement with Joao Felix we mentioned, Eddie Nketiah we mentioned. Wolves have submitted a proposal to sign Aaron Ramsdale. Keep an eye on that. Newcastle's latest offer this morning, very, very early, on Mark Gahey, 60 plus 5. Crystal Palace is looking for 65 plus 5. I think that'll happen. David Ornstein, given the discrepancy in valuations, Newcastle seemed to be at their limit. Palace refused to blink. The Tyneside Club now exploring other options in case the Gahey pursuit does not materialize. We mentioned Gundogan. Everton have turned down a bid from Marseille to sign Neil Maupay. Proposal from the French club was for a season-long loan with an option to buy next summer. Sepp Vandenberg nearing a permanent exit from Liverpool. And it would be a deal of $20 million with Wolfsburg to set to be agreed to. Liverpool's close to a deal for Valencia keeper Georgi Mamadashvili. The fee in the region of 40 million euro, 34 million has been discussed. And so Mamadashvili looks like he might be heading to Liverpool. Checking the Ornstein deal sheet and seeing if there's anything else that we've missed in the overnight. We mentioned McTominay, Fulham, Nketiah, and Nottingham Forest. Trevor Chalobah is also on the short list with Newcastle, in addition to Gahey and Gomez. Manchester United is willing to wait until deadline day to sign Manuel Ugarte with the hope that PSG will lower their £51 million valuation for the midfielder. Also working on a season-long loan to sign Ugarte, which would include an obligation to buy in 2025. That's from Fabrizio Romano. Tottenham and Giovanni Lo Celso has attracted interest from Villa, Betis, and Roma. Everton have inquired about triggering a 51.2, 60 million euro release clause for Atletico Mineiro's 18-year-old Brazilian forward Alisson Santana. We mentioned Santi Jimenez and Ahmed Hadzic with Wolves. Chelsea have informed Napoli they want at least 40 million for Romelu Lukaku, 40 million euro. Blues set to reject the loan offer with a 30 million euro obligation to buy. Chelsea and England U21 defender Bashir Humphrey set to join Burnley on a loan with an obligation to buy. And Burnley's defender Vintinho has agreed to personal terms to join Botafogo. So that is the gossip, rumor, and innuendo this morning that is dancing around. We mentioned the other thing in the USL Championship involving Loudoun United. And it has to do with a possible move. And this came from Fox 45 in Baltimore. And what they are saying is that the city of Baltimore is doing a feasibility study and trying to see if it would be worth it. So they're kicking the tires on the possibility of Loudoun United. And I will read you the article because I was having to sift through wording here. So here's what was posted. And this is from WBFF TV in Baltimore. So tell me if I'm off track here with what I was thinking. The Maryland Stadium Authority is moving forward with a study to determine a location in Baltimore that could house DC United's minor league soccer team. I'm taking that to mean Loudoun United. The study will look at a Baltimore Peninsula site located northwest of Mission Boulevard. David Williams with the Taxpayer Protection Alliance says the study costs $450,000. Williams says DC United should be paying for all of this. Taxpayers should not be paying for the study or the stadium. The initial cost breakdown. $450,000. DC United pays half. Maryland Department of Commerce pays $100,000. City of Baltimore pays $100,000. So that's how the initial cost of the study is paid for. DC United pays half of it. Williams says it's a huge waste of money. Says the stadium isn't going to bring in a lot of economic activity to make up for the increase in taxes. He says it's really just shifting money from one activity to another. So the Fox affiliate in Baltimore decided to catch up with David Williams of the Taxpayers Protection Alliance and not with either DC United to get a comment or the Maryland Stadium Authority. So it looks like there might be a $450,000 kick the tires study on whether or not Loudoun United could move to Baltimore in some manner, way, shape, or form sometime soon. So, so we'll keep an eye on that in addition to everything else that's going on in USL Championship and all the other places. I'm trying to see if there's any other stories that have happened that have broken while we've been on the air this morning. Happy National Radio Day, apparently, by the way. Ben Jacobs reinforcing the Mamadashvili purchase, 40 million euro for next season for Mamadashvili. And let's see, so Charlotte Ledger and all those kinds of things. Okay. What to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it. And thanks for hanging out on a Tuesday. Tomorrow it is stacked. Tyler Pilgrim dropping by at 9:15, as he always does. And hopefully we can catch up with the busiest man in the Northeast, Dylan Butler, at 10 o'clock. Marion Crowder, who was part of the inaugural broadcast of the USL Super League, will be joining us at 10:30. She'll be on to talk Super League, and she'll be on to discuss what's going on in the SEC. We're catching up with our friends from Georgia Southern this afternoon, and we will air that on the app later today. So we're catching up with Georgia Southern, both the men's and the women's sides, finding out what the latest is with them. One of the teams recently had a doubleheader in Hawaii. So we get to talk about that and what the trip was like and what they're learning early here in the season. So our Georgia Southern conversation as a part of Soccer's in Session will be up later this afternoon when it comes to all of that. What to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it. That's what we got to do before we get out of here. And let's see. So let's see what kind of football is on the tube tonight. We'll let you know. All right. So once again, a lot of soccer, a lot of college soccer. Jessica Charman, Luke Winstall had the Mercer match last night that you could have watched on the Plus. Libertadores is on BN. We mentioned how you could get BN if you don't already have it. 6 and 8:30, Fluminense, Gremio Junior, and Colo Colo. CONCACAF W Champions Cup at 10 o'clock. Santa Fe FC and San Diego Wave and their new interim coach, Landon Donovan, 10 o'clock on CBS Sports Network. BN Espanol simulcasting Libertadores. ESPN Deportes doubleheader in W Champions Cup. They have Alajuelense and Fraser's Whip at 8. Santa Fe and San Diego Wave at 10. Same on ESPN Plus. Golazo Network actually has Champions League qualifying at 3 o'clock. Lille and Slavia Praha, otherwise known as Slavia Prague to some of us. And then they also have Alajuelense and Fraser's Whip at 8 o'clock. Paramount Plus has a doubleheader in Champions League qualifying at 3 available. Dinamo Zagreb and Karabag, and Bodo Glimt and Crvena Zvezda, Red Star Belgrade. That's at 3 o'clock on Paramount Plus, along with the Santa Fe San Diego Wave match as well. So it's a busy day across the board. A lot of stuff to watch if you're hardcore and if you're really wanting to watch things as we go. Alex says his daughter at this very moment is marching around Center Park Stadium with her trumpet. I hope someone is shooting video of said Center Park march. Very, very cool. Okay. This is kind of interesting and obscure. Detroit City, for the remainder of the season, has signed Laurent Kisiadou from FK Pardubice in the Czech First League. Loans valid through the remainder of the season. Kisiadou will wear number 70 for Le Rouge. 129 appearances in the USL Championship, starting 105 over 6 seasons. Product of the Atlanta United Youth Academy, where he would play for the Twos, starting in 33 matches, 46 on the developmental side. Then he had his time at Memphis 901. 82 matches, 30 goal contributions, 16 and 14 after 23. Went to Pardubice, 14 appearances, 12 starts. But for the loan deal with Le Rouge, Kisiadou has already arrived in Detroit and will be available for selection for Wednesday's match on the road to Tampa Bay. So Laurent Kisiadou on loan from FK Pardubice is going to be a part of the discussion of what Detroit City FC is going to want to do as we go forward. So Laurent Kisiadou returns to USL Championship. Very, very cool. And then the other story that I wanted to get into before we got out of here, big deal. It's a big deal. A big deal is a big deal. As there was a trade in the NWSL as Racing Louisville picks up Bethany Balzer. And it was a deal that Racing Louisville thought they had to make as they're making their push to the playoffs. And so Bethany Balzer comes over in her trade with Rain. And so let me get the particulars of the deal. And so it was you end up now with Racing obviously, Jalen Howell going the other way as a part of the trade. But you now have Bethany Balzer in for Racing Louisville as they try to make a push for the playoffs. And it is a deal where Jalen Howell is outbound and inbound Bethany Balzer. So very, very big deal. Racing Louisville trades Jalen Howell to Seattle Reign for Bethany Balzer Racing, also sending $50,000 in allocation money to Seattle for their leading scorer. So big news in the NWSL, where Racing Louisville thought they needed to add a piece, and in doing so, they trade their captain away to make it happen. So it's a big deal in Louisville, where they now have Bethany Balzer, Abby Erseg, Taylor Flint, that is a part of the attack, and Jalen Howell gets traded out west. And so very, very big day for Racing Louisville and the NWSL down the stretch as they are trying to solidify a playoff position. And Balser has the third most goals in the NWSL since 2019. Jalen Howell, according to Tyler Griever at WDRB in Louisville, gets a fresh start in her career, show what kind of impact she can make. Injuries, unfortunately, slowed her down during 3 racing seasons, but she also did win the NWSL Nationwide Community Impact Award for her efforts with Down syndrome of Louisville. So Taylor Flint arguably has been the team's best player. Savannah DeMello, Ari Borges, Marissa DeGrande. Louisville's attack needed help. And so they're banking on Balser, who is one of the major scorers in the NWSL, to help things out. So a large deal. So a big deal that was a big deal in the NWSL. Bethany Balser goes from Reign to Racing Louisville. Jalen Howell goes from Racing Louisville to Reign to see what Racing Louisville can do in these race to the playoffs. So there you go. Okay. I went long, and I apologize for that, but we had stuff that we ended up talking about. So once again, thanks to all of you guys for hanging out with us as you always do on a Tuesday, which kind of turned into a Wall Pass Wednesday, and some PSAs and some food for thought and all that kind of stuff. So all those topics on the board. Once again, our Georgia Southern conversation will be up on the app later this afternoon. And thanks for dropping by. It'll be a busy Wednesday, busy Thursday. Hour number 2, fully loaded with our buddy Nino Torres and with Anika Moreno out of Seattle. And then Friday, we get you ready for the return of a lot of MLS action. Weekend whip around. We'll see what part of the planet Jason's on. And if he's not already in the air, we can get him to talk about Atlanta United and 5-9 and Dax McCarty and getting ready to play the Killer Peas, all of that stuff. All of that stuff this week. Busy week. And then Friday night on the network, it is Atlanta United 2 hosting Orlando City B. Maddie will have the call for you on the network. Pregame show is, when is the pregame show? Pregame show is at 7, kickoff at 7:33 on the network. So we'll see if Atlanta United 2 can string their win streak to 5 and do it at home with a match in hand as they're trying to climb into the playoff discussion in the Eastern Conference. Okay, so I keep saying that we're out, and then there's more stuff to talk about. Anyway, I'm calling it right here. Thanks, as always, for dropping by here on SDH. We'll be back at it again, packed show again for a Wall Pass Wednesday as we talk about stuff. That's the official term. And since it is the end of the show, that means that I get to do this and whistle us out. I still, for the life of me, cannot find just the music track to the end of the Gary Shanley Show. Play it safe, everybody. Thanks for dropping by. We'll be back in a little less than 22.